The bishop has asked us this weekend all around the diocese to have a Mass of forgiveness and to wear purple vestments, the vestments of Lent. Back in 1905, George Santayana, who was regarded as one of the most important thinkers of the first half of the 20th century, in his philosophical book entitled The Life of Reason, challenged us when he wrote, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." Move up to 1989. If you remember Billy Joel's hit song, "We Didn't Start the Fire," it mentions Santayana, referring to that very challenge. If you remember Billy Joel's song, it lists all the events of the past that must never be forgotten, even though most of us have no responsibility for those issues. There was a great music video along with it. Remember the lyrics? "We didn't start the fire. It was always burning since the world's been turning. We didn't start the fire. No, we didn't light it." Well, we've been dealing with and fighting a fire in our Catholic family for many years now. We gather this weekend aware of the financial settlement, which will hopefully put out the fire and to begin to heal the wounds of our family members who have been abused. But we gather as the people of resurrection, and we gather as the Catholic family. In the midst of this crisis, what's happening right now, we all know that there is so much to be proud of as our Catholic family, that we have made tremendous contributions to our world through our schools, our hospitals, the care of the poor and the alienated. Yet, as we are a grateful and proud people, we cannot have a blind eye to one of the dark periods of our family life. We must acknowledge and truly heal this very dark time in our history. There have been many dark times, and we have survived them all by the grace of the Holy Spirit. But the generation that we have lived through has been called the greatest crisis since the Protestant Reformation. And it has impacted all of us. Crimes were committed and covered up. We must never forget this, and we must never let it happen again. As Billy Joel sings, we didn't start the fire. No, the fire started many, many years ago with people who are mostly no longer with us. But now we as the Catholic family have a moral responsibility to put the fire out and heal the many that suffered because some of our family members abused them. It is because of this abuse that the diocese has been in Chapter 11 since 2020. There have been 387 cases, which comprise not just clergy, but really anyone working for the church in the past 70 years. Teachers, coaches, maintenance workers, volunteers, secretaries. Chapter 11 was not a decision made just to protect the church. It also allows the victims to be treated fairly so that all will receive some compensation, not just the few whose lawyers get to the courts first. Now, the process of Chapter 11 has been long and tedious for many reasons. It's been a very difficult process. The settlement of $100 million is shocking. Has taken me days to process it myself. The money, as you maybe have read, will come from the diocese of 50 million. Each parish, all the parishes together, 45 million, and diocesan entities, $5 million. We here at the cathedral, we are fortunate that we have resources to make our contribution so that we will be able to continue on with our ministries and serve you. Thus, we are not going to ask anyone for any money. I totally understand any feelings that you have, any thoughts that you have. I understand anger and frustration, doubts. I totally understand the shame and the embarrassment you might feel as part of our Catholic family. I share your feelings, believe me. When I was ordained in 1976, I never believed in a million years or expected that this scandal would be in the forefront of my ministerial life. Just about 40 of the 47 years I've been a priest. Have I thought about walking away? Yeah. Have I questioned why this was allowed to happen? Yes, absolutely. Am I embarrassed by it? Of course, yes. Do I feel somewhat betrayed? Absolutely. So you might ask, well, why have I stayed? Well, first of all, I made a commitment, and one does not walk away from the family when there is dysfunction. Secondly, in reflecting upon my life as a priest, I stay for you, for the many people I've ministered to in the past 47 years that have been wonderfully faith-filled people, simply desiring a safe place to find God and to worship and serve others. Now, I know you won't believe this, but 3 years ago I turned 70, just as the pandemic was in full force. And the church, as you know, was empty for 3 months. At 70, I could retire. My thought then was certainly to stay on and work with you to revive this parish community that we love so much after this pandemic. As we know, the pandemic has changed everything, as has the abuse crisis. As we face the settlement of Chapter 11, one of the reasons I choose not to retire, if my health remains good, is to help us make it through this, the next few difficult years. We will certainly have to tighten the ship, but I really have been very frugal with the money. My father used to ask me if I will ever spend my first communion money. This is a wonderful parish community, and I know that we can make it through this together and make it even stronger. Because we are an Easter people. We are a people who believe that Good Friday turns into Easter. We are a people who believe that new life and rebirth do happen after the worst of scandals. We are a people filled with grace to weather the storms of life. We are a people who never give up on ourselves or each other. We are a people committed to heal the wounds of those in our family who have been hurt. For so many years now, we as a church have been buried under this tomb, and it is time to appropriately respond to our family members who have suffered profoundly. The stone that has covered this tomb has been rolled away slowly and painfully. And we find ourselves dealing with the consequences of crimes committed years ago and covered over by our ancestors who, for the most part, are no longer with us. We, the descendants, are faced with the struggle to truly and finally appropriately heal the victims. I believe it's a moral responsibility. It's the right moral decision, as painful as it might be. Yes, none of you started the fire. And yes, we must not forget the past so that it's never repeated again. There's so much more I could share with you, but certainly not in a homily. There are frequently asked questions sheet in the back. They're on the websites of the diocese and of the cathedral. Steve Breen and I will be available after all of the masses to answer your questions. Let's not forget we are an Easter people. You know, if you read the history of the church, there have been darker times than this. Just reflect on the Middle Ages. Grace saved us then. Grace will keep us safe now. Through many dangers, toils, and shares we have already come. Grace has brought us safe thus far. Grace will lead us home. Thank you for your support and your understanding.